no company in the history of the world has scaled and made a lot of money by not investing any of theirs. The biggest thing that you can do is generate leads. That's literally the forefront of your business. And whether it's with cold email or whether you're running ads or whether you're generating content, whatever you're doing, you have to generate leads. Right now, the vast majority of our clients are other marketing agencies. So
Okay.
think ad agencies, content agencies, YouTube agencies, SEO agencies. Over the past couple of weeks, we generated 53 sales calls for them. So right now we're sending anywhere from like 6,000 to 10,000 emails a day. Keep following up until they give you a clear no. We started probably around like $500 a month. For me, even if I'm not, I am the best cold emailer in the world. How's it going, Jacob?
Okay. Okay, man. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. I appreciate you having me on.
Okay, awesome. So tell us a little bit about yourself and what do you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Justin Hillsberg. I've been in the marketing space for about 9 years now. Over the past six, we've specialized in cold email. So we have a cold email agency. We do everything from A to Z with cold email, so everything on both the technical and the strategy side. So on the technical side, setting up email accounts, segmenting them properly, getting the prospect list, and everything really just to make sure that we're getting the emails landing in the inbox, not in spam. Right. And then everything on the strategy side as well. So copywriting, messaging, offer creation, A/B testing, tracking the analytics, managing the inbox, and everything on that end to really just maximize the performance of the campaign and make sure that we're actually getting positive replies and booked calls.
Okay, that's awesome. We actually also do cold email, so it's going to be interesting to see kind of what's working. But take me back to kind of like where it all started and like bring us back here.
Yeah, definitely. So I started in the marketing space, kind of just working corporate. So I was a marketing coordinator and a marketing manager at a few different companies, and kind of figured that their processes were a little bit inefficient and that I could probably make things a lot more faster and obviously make more money as well, kind of doing my own thing. So I branched off into the agency space. And at first, I was kind of trying everything. So I was doing paid ads, I was doing Facebook, Google, SEO, social media, and everything under that umbrella. And it wasn't until I kind of came across cold email where someone had actually reached out to me pitching cold email services. I signed him on and we did cold email for my own company. And I was like, I should offer this as a service because I saw how well it was performing. Right. And so since then, which was like early 2020, we've specialized only in cold email. That's been our only offer. We've really perfected the process since then, especially with all the recent updates with Google and Microsoft going on and how much more difficult it's been to actually get results with cold email, land in the inbox, avoid spam, and all of those things. We've really kind of perfected that process along the way, and that's kind of how we got here today.
Okay, awesome. So for context, we do sales recruiting. So we specialize in online service-based businesses, and we place setters and closers across. And then we also do all sales talent. So we specialize in pretty much like the entire revenue engine. So say from, C-suite leadership all the way down to like setters. So we do C-suite, VP of sales, sales directors, closers, account executives, and then setters and SDRs. So pretty much we do that whole side of it. So from where you are today, kind of like what was kind of like one of the biggest challenges that you guys had?
Yeah, I mean, I would say with cold email, as far as actually scaling, I think the biggest thing for me was really just removing myself as a bottleneck, right? And really just delegating properly and putting people in place so that we can make our processes a lot more efficient. And I think a big problem with that is a lot of prospects, especially at first, they kind of came on and signed on just to work with me instead of the company as a whole, right? And when I figured more that clients care more about actual results than who it is that they're working with, that's when I was able to kind of take a step back, delegate properly, and get the right people in place to actually go ahead and scale this up to where we're at today. So I would say that's probably one of the biggest issues. And obviously, in terms of the cold email space, just everything that's been going on. So making sure that we're up to date with all cold email standards. So not tracking open rate anymore, not sending any links or images or attachments in that initial email. Segmenting the emails properly, making sure that we're not going over our daily limit, making sure now we don't use Microsoft emails because we're just seeing a high spam rate with them, validating all the emails properly. So, just a lot of things like that in the cold email world. We're just making sure as we go on that we're doing everything as optimal as possible.
That's awesome. So I'll tell you for context. So we also do cold email, and one of the challenges that we've had a few weeks ago was where our domains kind of Gmail just took him out. So we've been doing that stuff. So what have you seen that is currently working, um, I know a lot of people talk about like offer, there's a deliverability piece. I know cold email has like a lot to it, more than what people just think it is. So kind of like what would you say is the most important parts and what's currently working in the market today?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, there's so many different aspects with cold email that if even one of those aspects are not fully optimized, the entire campaign falls flat. So, I mean, the number one thing that you have to make sure that you have on point is your deliverability. If you're delivering in spam, it literally does not matter how good your offer is or how good your messaging is or how targeted you are. No one's going to see your email, right? So, deliverability is really the number one thing when it comes to cold email. So we always want to make sure that we are landing in the inbox, and we do that by segmenting the emails properly, not going over that daily limit, only sending emails to valid prospects, not sending to catch-all or invalid leads. And making sure we have spin tags within all the copy, making sure that the messaging doesn't violate any, spam guidelines or anything like that. And really just everything to make sure that we're getting in front of the prospect. So that's number one. As far as offers and what we've seen work, what we've seen is a really, really valuable front-end offer is going to be the best for cold email. And this has changed drastically over the past like 5 or so years, where maybe in like 2022 you can send an email, maybe just pitching a call off the bat or saying, hey, you have 15 minutes next week, or using like the generic like quick question subject line, right? But as time has gone on, a lot of these companies have gotten, I hate the word saturated, but that's really the only correct word to use here, where they're just so hyper aware of all these different offers that people are using over cold email that I get every single day. So it's really important to kind of make yourself stand out with cold email. And so with that valuable front end offer, just something that's super valuable and tangible to a prospect that you can give them upfront without any strings attached, right? So something that's worked really well for the agencies that we work with is, hey, we're going to offer you 20 free leads, or we're going to offer you a free trial of this service, or a free setup, or a free ad sample, or something along those lines where it's a no-brainer and it makes the prospect almost feel stupid saying no. And just giving that upfront to them for free is really what kind of drives the nail in with cold email and what we've seen work really, really well.
Yeah, I think that's the key. So I think like having a strong front end cold offer, and I know that we're both part of Client Ascension, um, but I know that having a strong front end cold offer, cold traffic offer, is really important because, I mean, even us, like we get a lot of cold emails all day, and it's like if you can't catch them in that moment and get their attention, they just delete, or spam. So I think that's one, probably the most important thing, besides for the deliverability part and all that stuff. I think that's also um, very important. What avatar, who do you guys service?
So right now, the vast majority of our clients are other marketing agencies. So
Okay.
think ad agencies, content agencies, YouTube agencies, SEO agencies. That's really who we've been able to kind of crack the code for and really crush for. Our most recent client, we just signed them, I think 3 weeks ago. Over the past couple of weeks, we generated 53 sales calls for them. And we've just absolutely crushed, in the agency space. So that's really who our main target has been. But we can work with really any B2B company. Like we work with a company that offers financial loans. We work with consulting companies, accounting firms, but the vast majority of our clientele are definitely marketing agencies.
Very interesting. Yeah, I think that's like the most important thing. Um, so when you say, that you work with all different kind of B2B companies, what would you say is the biggest like objection that you hear talking to people?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of cold email, a lot of people have just had really bad experiences with cold email. Either that, or they kind of just write cold email off as spam. So those are really probably the biggest two objections that we get when talking to prospects. Again, with cold email, like I said earlier, there's just so many aspects to it. Where if one thing you do is not good, the entire campaign's going to fall flat, right? So whether it's a cold email agency that just didn't do their job, or you were trying to do it yourself and you just didn't see results, if you don't know exactly what you're doing, you're not doing everything the absolute correct way, you're just not going to see results. So that's something that a lot of our clients have told us when they were on our sales call. A lot of prospects that I talked to have had that similar issue. Um, but I would say that those are definitely probably one of the more bigger objections of why people kind of struggle with cold email.
Interesting. So when you say, I know you mentioned that you worked with somebody that you guys just got 53 sales calls. What kind of volume are you guys sending? Because I think that's one of the things where, people said like 100 or 500 and they're like, hey, it doesn't work. right? So like, what is actually needed? Like, what kind of volume is needed?
Yeah, I mean, it's always going to depend on the size of the client's target audience. Typically, we try to work with prospects that have larger target audiences just because obviously we can send more volume. So we really try to prioritize really high volume emails. Like when we first started, we were sending, 500 a day, 1,000 per day. And then we kind of like peaked at 2,000 per day and we thought we were doing a lot. But then we realized that there's really just levels to this game, right? So right now we're sending anywhere from like 6,000 to 10,000 emails a day. For the client that booked 53 in the past 2 weeks, we're sending 6,000 per day for them.
Wow. Wow. That's awesome. And how is he handling it? All those calls. Does he have a team? Like, how's he doing it?
Yeah, so they did not have a team, so they were actually not prepared for those calls at all. But we did kind of space them out over the next few weeks so that they actually have time to go ahead and catch up. Like yesterday, they had 7 calls. On Monday, they had 11. On Friday, they had 13. So it's two of them that they're partners. And, they've definitely kind of been juggling through the calls and making sure that they have enough time in the day to meet them and everything. But they are in the they're trying to kind of expand right now and get some salespeople on just to keep this lead flow coming and make sure that they're actually capitalizing on it.
Yeah, I think that's it's the part that like people don't even real see it coming. It's like, you want the leads until you have them, and then you're like, oh man, like what do I do? Who takes all these calls? I think that's kind of like segues us into like the next point. It's like, I know that you're growing your business, and we're also working on our business. Um, how do you think about your team in terms of hiring and I guess like how big is your team now?
Yeah, so right now we're still pretty boutique. We're about 6 people. Um, our biggest hires for sure were just things that I didn't even realize were taking me a lot of time out of the day. So, for example, one of our first hires was an inbox manager, and that saved me hours upon hours of time because what I was doing was just managing all of our clients' inboxes. And I always told myself, oh, yeah, it doesn't take too long. Like, I have the Slack notification set up. When a positive response comes in, I just go in real quick, reply to them, manage and monitor the campaigns as I go throughout the day, and it's not a big deal. But then I'm looking back at it, and I would spend hours every single day just kind of doing this busy work. And when I kind of saw that, I was like, okay, let me try to hire an inbox manager. I found somebody. She is absolutely amazing. Has been with us for the past 2 years, and she's been crushing it. And she's been on top of every single campaign. I never have to even think about it. Whenever a positive response comes in, she goes in and she replies right away. And yeah, she's been managing the whole thing, and it's definitely allowed me to kind of focus on more important things within the business to actually scale.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most important roles in the end of the day. Like, if you can't book these calls, if you can't get calls on your calendar, I mean, because you can have like a lot of setters that just don't know how to set, and they're messaging customers, they're messaging clients, and without even realizing it, like they're kind of like sabotaging like what they're actually trying to do. So I think like having like a good training in place for them is like extremely important. So like, what do you guys do for like training and bringing your folks up to speed?
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest things, and this is something that they could teach a client ascension as well, is really just recording your entire day, right? Like literally make every single task that you do an SOP. So I would record like me managing one client specific inbox and the templates that I use for that inbox, and then recording the next one and the next one, and then recording myself setting up the email accounts and onboarding new clients and sending the contracts and doing all these things, right? And just really just making templated SOPs for every single task that you do so that it makes it super easy to train someone when they do come on board. So when the inbox manager came and joined our team, she had everything already laid out for her, easily separated in Google Docs for each client. So that way she's able to immediately start. Like she was able to get onboarded right away and start responding to the inboxes on the day that we hired her. So that just made it a lot easier. So that's something that we've been, really prioritizing as we scale up as well.
I think that's like the biggest thing, because like when you bring on a new SDR or a new closer, it's like the worst thing is like you train them, and then like after 30 days they just leave, and then they take all the training with you, and then you spent all that money, the salary, all the headaches. Or if like they just like you give them leads and then they just burn them because they don't actually know how to sell. So I think like that's like the most important thing. And like one of the things that we do in our company is that like we provide post hire support. So not just like placing them and running away. It's like we actually like stay with you and provide support and then ramp them into KPI. So I think like that's like one of the biggest things. And of course, like if you don't train them, like and then the day you're flying blind and they're flying blind, and then you're mad because they don't know what to do, and and then the day it becomes like a lose-lose situation. So I think like that's like the most important thing, and the fact that you guys have like a training program, I think that's very good. So kudos to you guys for that, for getting that ramped up. What do you guys currently do to get clients?
Yeah, so right now we do a good mix of things. Cold email obviously is probably our number one. We send personally 10,000 emails a day, and we try to really just maximize responses, maximize booked calls, and make sure that we're just getting in contact with the right people at the right time. And then obviously, there's not enough leads, especially in the agency world, because that's who we've been targeting for a while. So we'll do a lot of retargeting campaigns as well from agencies that maybe we reached out to 3, 4 months ago, and continuously follow up, especially with all the leads that we have generated over time. Like there's leads that I have followed up with for 10 months before they actually went ahead and closed, right? And so follow ups are such a powerful thing as well, which is a really big daily task that we do. And that's something I recommend to literally anyone running cold email or trying to get clients. Keep following up until they give you a clear no. Because if they're not answering or they just haven't said yes yet, it's just because all the stars have not aligned, right? They initiated interest for a reason. And they can definitely close down the line if, let's say they sign a new client or they got funding or whatever, and now they're ready for your service. It's always worth following up. But we do a lot of cold email. LinkedIn is also huge for us. It's probably our second channel. I'm very active on LinkedIn. I post a lot of content. I try to every single day, and we do a lot of outbound on LinkedIn as well. And we have a few profiles on LinkedIn that are constantly sending out connection requests and messages to our ideal prospects. Try to go ahead and book calls and kind of just educate people on cold email. And then Facebook has actually been a good one for us too. That's actually where we found our first few clients, was through Facebook groups. So like Go High Level groups, Instantly AI groups, other marketing agency owner groups. We've been in there. We post on there. We message people on there. And we've really kind of built ourselves a little community in that space as well. And it's really just about overall just really creating credibility and authority within all of these spaces, so that people kind of see you as the cold email guy, or really want to trust you when it comes to scaling their business and providing leads for them.
Yeah, I think that's like the main thing. It's like, what do they say? They say like the money happens in like the fifth or sixth, seventh follow up.
Mhm.
And I think like a lot of people are like, hey, I reached out, he's interested, but I can't reach him anymore. But it's like, it could be that he got busy. It could be that right now is not a good time. And just people get busy, it's kind of the name of the game. So um, I think that's a key right there, that just follow up, even if not, and it's a lesson for us too, in that sense. So
Absolutely.
that's pretty good. So how do you figure out your pricing?
Yeah, so I mean, our pricing has jumped around quite a bit since we started. Obviously, we started out a lot smaller when we first started our agency, and then have kind of increased since then. Once we really, again, kind of perfected that process, realized that we're providing a really valuable service. Realizing that we're helping clients generate tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars through cold email. So we know that we can charge what we do to kind of validate that. But we started probably around like $500 a month. We were pretty low ticket when we first started back in 2020. And since then, we've always just continuously bumped it up once we really got that market validation. So went up to 1,000, then 1,250, and then 1,500, then 2,000. And right now we're sitting around 3,500 to 7,000, depending on the volume that the campaigns are sending. And obviously we have some lower packages as well and some higher packages, but really that sweet spot is anywhere from 6,000 to 10,000 emails per day, where the price ranges from 3,500 to $7,000 a month.
Yeah, I think like that. That's like one of the most important things. It's like one of like the biggest objections that we get is like price. And the truth is like the price objection that you typically get are typically from smaller businesses,
Right.
because they look at it as like a cost center. But like the truth is like in your case, in cold email, or um, in our case in sales recruiting, it's like, oh, why should we pay so much money for that? But it's like, okay, well, what is that person gonna? What's the return? Like, what is the return that you're gonna get from that? And like, what is a good closer worth for you?
Mhm.
What is a closer close? right? I've spoke with somebody a couple of days ago. They closed 1.2 million in the last 12 months, right? So
Wow.
like, what is somebody like that worth to a business, right? And I think that's like one of the things where we try to show ROI. Like, look, at the end of the day, like these people generate you money, so it's an investment. And I think like the sophisticated business owners, like they understand that, and they are more willing to invest. But I think like that's like one of the biggest objections that we get is like cost. But at the end of the day, like it's an investment, and it's like, and if you look at it, like all the biggest companies, right? If you look at it, that this is what they do. Like they hire recruiters, they get people on board, and on that note, like I just heard a clip from Alex Hermosi, and he's like, oh, we wanted to scale our sales team from 6 reps to like 30, and he's like, yeah, we just hired 10 recruiters, and each recruiter brought us 3 candidates, and we worked out a volume rate, and they just went from like 6 to 30 in like 6 months.
Mhm.
And I think like that's how these like big companies, this is how they scale.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think? What do you think that most business owners waste money on?
That's a good question. I think a lot of business owners, especially right now with this AI craze going on, a lot of business owners are really trying to kind of, I guess, cut corners would be the right term, but really cut corners and try to automate as much as they can, when it's really just not that necessary. So I know a lot of business owners are like, I have one of my clients right now that are going to like an AI show or whatever to kind of learn more about AI. When that's not really going to help them scale. Like, yeah, it might help them save a little bit of time on the front end, maybe help with some manual work or maybe things that they don't want to do, but that's not really going to drive more revenue to their business, right? So I think a big thing that a lot of people spend their money on are a lot of these AI tools and, a lot of these subscriptions that can range from like, $29 to $150 a month or whatever it is, right? And these tools can really add up, the more that you have them. And a lot of people, especially me, I do this all the time. I forget about subscriptions that I have all the time. Like I just got hit with a charge today for a tool that I haven't used in like 2 years, right? And I just keep forgetting to cancel. But it eats away at your margins. So I think that's something that a lot of people really try to kind of focus in on, when it's really just not necessary. And one thing that I've learned is really just trying to put your energy towards revenue producing activities, right? Because the main reason that we're all in business is to make a living, right? And so everything that you are doing throughout the day should be to produce more clients, produce more cash flow, expand your margins, and just do the best you can in terms of making money. And so that's something that I see a lot of business owners kind of get a little too fixated on, and even maybe get shiny object syndrome from, with this whole AI boom going on right now.
Yeah, speaking about like the education piece, it's like, I feel like, you have to learn, you have to educate yourself, and you have to get, all that stuff. But I feel like it gets to a point where it's like, okay, you have all the information that you need. It's like, okay, now it's time to do, you know? So like, I think that's like a really important thing where it's like people mentally masturbate, so to speak, getting more information, but like you'll get way further by just doing. It's like, well, I want to get good at sales. Well, why don't you just get on 10 sales calls? Instead of just learning every single book about sales, you'll learn way more by actually doing it. So I think that's really important. And then about education, I speak. Sorry, my gardener's here.
No worries.
We'll cut it out. Um, on the education note, I think like, you know, we get more information, or it's like you go to this conference because you want to learn about this, or you want to learn about marketing or sales or operations, whatever it is, right? And it's like one of the mindsets that I had was like, well, you go there, I learned, and like I'm almost at the same amount now. Like I didn't make any more money, so it's like it's a scam, right? But like one of the views that like Alex Ramosi has is like, at the end of the day, like it's to where you want to go is like a link, a chain link, and it's like you need 30, and it's like you went to this conference, like this conference gave you 3, right? But like you still need another 27 to get to where you want to go. So I
Mhm.
think like that's like when you look at education, it's like it's really like that. It's not about like, oh, I didn't get the skill or I got the skill and I'm still where I'm at. It's skill stacking. So it's like the more you do, you have to stack your skills and you have to get all the chains across in order to actually get where you want to go. What's kind of like your view on this?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's something that I've kind of picked up over the past 6 or so years as well. Just being an entrepreneur, kind of doing my own thing, is really stacking all of these skills that have kind of led me to where I'm at right now, right? Especially as an agency owner, you're wearing so many hats, or even any business owner, really. You have to be a marketer, you have to be a salesperson, you have to do fulfillment, you have to be a manager, you have to do all these different things, right? And you kind of learn these skills as you go. And I think, pointing back to what you said is where, oh, you want to get better at sales, do 10 sales calls, right? You have to put yourself in the situation to actually learn that skill. Watching a bunch of YouTube videos about how to make 10K a month, they're good, but you have to actually do the work to be able
Yeah.
to create that value within yourself and create those skill sets. And so that's something that, again, I've been trying to do since I started business, is just actively doing every day, doing revenue producing opportunities that build those skill sets. So selling more, marketing more, managing my team, doing fulfillment, learning cold email as best I can, being super enveloped into the world and just doing, 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 doing. And that's really what helps you propel as a business owner for sure.
Yeah, I think like as a business owner, like you don't have to like know how to do everything, but like you have to know enough to know if the person that you're working with knows what they're doing. Like I'll give you an example. It's like I've learned Google Ads, so like I know how relatively to manage a campaign. At one point I hired an agency, and because I knew how to do it, I saw that like they just delegate you to like a media buyer that like they don't know, like even their account managers, like they don't actually know what they're doing. So I think like you got to really know it, and then you also have to like look like who are you actually working with, and make sure that there are people that actually know what they're doing and can really help you. And you want the people that like are invested in your success. So I think that's like the one of the most important parts.
Absolutely.
What mental shift do you think helped you grow the most?
Mental shift. I would really say, coming from corporate, going into my own business, really just being able to manage my own work, I think was a really big one, and really just having the discipline to show up every single day, especially on days that might be a little bit harder than others, whether it's in your personal life or even in your business life as well, where maybe a client quits, right? And maybe that was like your first client and they quit and now you have no income, right? And it's like, okay, I can either sulk about this right now and do absolutely nothing and go back to working 9 to 5, or I can kind of take it on the chin, keep doing what I've been doing to get that first client and try to go ahead and get more. Right. And so I think that's one of the biggest things when it comes to being a business owner, is really just being super, super disciplined, realizing that nothing here is a linear path. The life of a business owner is literally consistently up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. And even if you are on that downward shift, you have to know internally that it's going to go back up to get again, and you have to be almost delusional enough to think that it's going to go back up again, right? And I think that's a really, really big thing too. Is really just literally think that you're the best at whatever it is you do. So, like for me, even if I'm not, I am the best cold emailer in the world, right? Like that's how I have to think of myself if I want to produce the best results for my clients, sound confident on my sales calls, sound confident in my content and everything else that I do in my life regarding cold email. So I would say that's probably one of the biggest mental things when it comes to owning a business.
Yeah, I think like when you work for somebody, they kind of like set your hours, they give you things what to do, like they tell you, okay, you got to do this, you got to do this. As a business owner, it's like you have to prioritize on your own. You have to figure out what to do on your own. And you have to like work on like what actually moves the needle, kind of like what you were saying. It's like you have to work on revenue generating activities. Like I see people like sitting there and like setting up like their dashboard or something like that. It's like, yeah, like you could do that, but like, or you could just like go do sales calls or go do outreach, and these are things that actually move the needle.
Right.
So I think like, yeah, I mean, really knowing how to prioritize your day, knowing what to work on, and just picking like the highest leverage activities to work on, I think that's the most important. So
Absolutely
yeah,
agreed.
I think that's very important. What's your daily routine look like?
Yeah, so right now, pretty much, I wake up. First thing I'll do usually is check the emails, make sure that I'm not missing anything from the night before. I try not to work past like 6, 7 o'clock. So if I do have an email from a client or something along those lines, usually I'll try to wait for the next day unless it's super urgent. But first thing I'll do is check emails, make sure I'm not missing anything from the night before. Checking with my team. We meet at 9 a.m. every single day. Make sure that everything's good. Make sure they're planned out for the day, and that we have everything that's on track for any client fulfillment or the inbox or anything like that. And then usually as the day goes on, I'll probably do outreach. I'll make some content on LinkedIn, make some content on Facebook. I've been trying to record videos more often, for Instagram. And yeah, I mean, doing a lot of outreach, taking client calls, sales calls, and again, just really trying to leverage those revenue producing activities day in, day out, to maximize the amount of book calls that we can generate. But I would say really those are the main things that I'm doing throughout the day, to really, again, just try to maximize the results that we're having on our end.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we kind of do the same thing where it's like, in the morning, like obviously I hit the gym, you want to get your mind right. I think that's like very important. But yeah, I mean, just, getting in there in the beginning and just like, okay, where am I going to prioritize my time? Like, where does the business need me today? And, like what you were saying, like business is up and down, so it's like, okay, one day it's like, wow, amazing, like client just paid me, I just won a client, it's like, it's amazing. And then it's like the next day, like you have a client that cancels or it doesn't work out or emails shut down. Like we had a campaign where the emails just shut down on us, so it's like, okay, well, now what do we do? So I think like, being in a good mood despite what goes on in your day, I think that's really important, and something that like I strive to work on a daily basis. So
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
yeah, what's been like your like biggest takeaway or like learnings from client ascension?
Yeah, I mean, from client ascension specifically, my biggest thing was really kind of like those first three steps that we took. So the offer, the VSL, and the landing page, right? Really getting those together. They're essentially the foundation of your business. And I think that's something that I had been struggling with prior to joining, where I didn't really have a clear cut offer that was quantifiable. I never had a VSL in my life. My landing page was, it was okay. It was pretty generic, but it wasn't structured the way that they kind of instruct you to have it. And, once I kind of fixed all those things where I had that validated offer, I had a really solid VSL, I had a really solid landing page, things picked up almost immediately. I signed I think it was two clients in my first 2 weeks with Client Ascension after changing my offer, my landing page, and my VSL, and all of that. And I kind of attribute that success to them and really just helping me build out that foundation. And right now I'm really just focused on operations, outbound, and really making sure that the system that we have within our business is working well. Again, to maximize booked calls.
Yeah, I think for us it was pretty much the same thing. So like we had like a generic offer and we were just always like changing it, like trying to figure out like what it should be. But it's like as soon as we came in there, like I messed around with like the AI that they have there and like all the content that they had, and it's like, okay, well, we changed it where it's like now it's like, okay, before it was like, okay, we'll recruit salespeople for you, and now it's like, okay, like we'll guarantee to place a proven closer in your business that generates at least 50K in the first 90 days, or we replace them for free. So I think like once you have a strong offer, you know, you get more traction, so to speak. I mean, we have people that are like spam, like get out of my inbox, whatever. Like we had this morning where this guy, basically, essentially, it's like, okay, well, is it worth a chat?
Mhm.
So he's like, sure. And then so I respond back to him, like try to get him on schedule. And then he goes, no, stop spamming me. I'm like, what do you want? So I think like, yeah, having the right offer was huge for us. And then, you know, getting the right script, sending that out, doing the right amount of volume. I think that was like very important for us. And then they like, that's what we specialize in. We specialize in sales talent. So the whole part of the revenue engine. So I think that's that was probably the biggest takeaway for us so far. And we just started a couple weeks ago, so I think that was probably one of the most. If you can go back in time to before you started, what would you do differently?
That's a really good question. Um, Practically nothing, because everything that I think that I've learned over time has been a really good learning curve for me. And, I really try to live without having any regrets, because I think every mistake that you have is a lesson. And every lesson obviously helps you kind of transform into the person that you are running the business that you have. But in terms of, what ifs, I think probably one of the biggest things that I would do when I first started would, like I just said, kind of have that validated offer, that landing page, that VSL as soon as I started, because I probably could have transformed this entire journey and kind of scaled it a lot faster than I have. If I had that foundation set from the beginning, and especially back when I was only doing, when I was doing like SEO and ads and all that stuff, I wish I had just started with cold email, because I bet that it would have helped me scale even further than that. So I would say those two things really. But again, like I try to live on this idea that every mistake is a lesson. And so for that reason, I wouldn't try to change anything in my past, because I think everything happens for a reason. And everything that I have done has led me to where I'm at today, which I'm very happy with. And I know that it's only up from here.
Yeah. So before I got into recruiting, I bought a home service business. So our biggest growth engine, like the way that we used to get leads, is from Google Ads.
Hmm.
So when I got started, I was like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna do Google Ads. I'm in recruiting. I'm gonna do Google Ads. It's intent based. Great. I started that off, and the problem that we had was 99% of the market is candidates, and like 99% of people that are looking for a recruiter are candidates. Because they're like, oh, where can I find a recruiter near me? So I think that was like the biggest problem that we had early on, and then we spent a lot of money trying to keep. We kept tweaking it, putting negative search terms and all that stuff, but we just didn't get it to work. Probably like I don't know how to do it, but then we kind of shifted over to cold email, and we've seen that be much better because you can target more. So yeah, I mean, I think like Google Ads, it could work. I just probably wasn't able to figure it out. But I think like for us, like if we would have started first with cold email and content instead, I think like it would have that would have been like my learning curve, you could say.
Definitely. Have you gotten a lot better results with cold email since switching over?
Um, so yes. So happens to be we signed. So we've gotten calls from it. I've spoken to multiple people.
Hmm.
It's not very consistent for us. It's like one day you'll get like one or two responses, and then you'll go like 2 3 days with nothing.
Sure.
Uh, we are sending. So what my capacity to send now is 2,000 a day.
Okay.
Is that too little? Should I be doing more?
I would definitely recommend more. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2000 is very small, especially depending on your offer, which, it sounds like, you're more of kind of like an agency type of offer. You definitely need to be sending more, because the market's just, like I said, they're just hyper aware of all these different offers that all these digital services are running right now. And volume's really the only way to do it. I mean, if you're getting a few responses a day, maybe every 2 or 3 days, right? Imagine triple that now, where you're saying 6,000 per day. Now you're thinking 9 replies a day, every other day, right? And that's a big jump. So I always try to think of things in quantifiable terms. Um, and so that was another reason that we kind of increased our sends to 10,000 a day, because we also started at 2,000 per day, and then I think we bumped it up to like 4,500 or something. And then I saw the results that was bringing. And I was like, okay, what if I doubled what I'm sending right now? That means I would get double the results, right? So if I'm booking 10 calls a month from 4,500 emails a day, I'll book double that every single month, doing
Yeah.
10,000 a day. So that was kind of the thought process there, but I would definitely bump that up. And get more than happy to see, your copy, and see if I can help you with, that front end valuable offer that I talked about and all of that. I think that'd be really helpful.
Yeah. Where would you tell us to go? Would you tell me to just double it, or would you say like go even further?
I mean, I would definitely recommend go even further, of course.
Like
But
5,000 a day?
the more the merrier. The more the merrier, depending on the size of your target audience, of course. But the more emails that you send, I mean, it's just the more responses that you'll get, the more booked calls that you're getting. And the thing with cold email too is that first email that you send out. So I'm not sure how many follow-ups you're using. Right now, we're using 2 follow-ups, so we have 3 emails
Yeah.
total that go out. That first email is always the email that gets the most hits, right? And so if let's say on day one you're sending 6,000 emails of that first email to 6,000 prospects, on the second day you're sending 6,000 emails to new prospects. Third day, 6,000 emails to new prospects. On the fourth day, now you're retargeting that first group of the 6,000, right? You're going to have the lowest amount of responses on that fourth day because you've already hit them before. Now you're hitting them with that second email. And so now, not that it's a wasted day, but now you're hitting the same people and you're just going to get way less of a response rate, right? And so one of our things is we're trying to constantly hit new people every single day. So we'll kind of split up like those initial emails going out with the follow-up emails. So that way we know that we're getting responses and predictability every single day. And so we really try to make it a consistent flow of leads coming in through the pipeline.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, we do. So, I mean, that's what we do. What do you like? Where do you guys, if you don't mind sharing, where do you guys get the leads? So, like, we use Instantly for cold email,
Mhm.
and they're not cheap to get for like their credits and like to get the emails. What do
Yeah.
you guys do, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah, we use a range of different things. Usually Apollo and LinkedIn Sales Navigator have been really big for us. If we need SaaS leads, usually we'll go on Crunchbase. But I mean, there's D7. There's so many different lead tools out there. We haven't really had a lot of success with Apollo. We found that Apollo, I mean, with Instantly rather, with
Yeah.
Instantly, we've kind of found that a lot of the leads, it's kind of similar to Apollo, but Apollo has way more leads than Instantly. Leads are kind of just all used by the same people over and over again. Especially because everyone that's on Instantly is on there to send cold email. So a lot of them are just using that platform there to get the leads from. And so a lot of those are really just repeated over and over. And so a lot of the contacts on there, they've already heard pitches from a million people. Like they're just not listening to cold emails anymore. So getting leads from places where maybe they aren't as common, where you can get really targeted leads and leads that haven't heard a million cold emails before, can be really helpful. So LinkedIn Sales Navigator and Apollo is where we get the majority of ours.
And where do you guys like enrich the leads?
So we have a bunch of different tools that we use. That's honestly under the house of my team. So I'm honestly not 100% sure what the name of the tools are in terms of enrichment. I know that we verify using Million Verifier and then one more tool. Um, as far as enrichment, I'm not 100% sure what my team's using right now.
Got it. Yeah, I mean that's interesting. What's like an unpopular opinion that you hear a lot about, like if you can tell somebody that is thinking about cold email or they see that cold email is spam or whatever, like what would you tell that person?
Yeah, I think that a really popular opinion with cold email that I totally disagree with, and I post this all the time, is about personalization. Prospects do not need personalization unless you're like personalizing like super specifically and you're like, hey, I saw that you have this product and you're doing this thing, and like unless it's like literally like it has to be manual, like if you're using like AI agents or an AI SDR or something, we've seen that it's just not working. Like if you're just like, hey, I like the article that you posted on this, or hey, I saw your recent post on LinkedIn about this, like we're just seeing that the reply rates are not there for that, and none of that is going to mask a bad offer, right? So the only things that you need with your cold email messaging is a no-brainer, valuable front-end offer. That's literally it. That's all we're seeing works. That's how we booked 53 meetings for that client there. That's how we booked another company. We got them from zero to $78,000 a month. So we got another company. I think it was 45 booked calls in 1 month. We've done this over and over again. We've seen what works repetitively, especially for marketing agencies. Is just having that no-brainer offer. And a lot of people really try to kind of push like this whole AI, hyper personalization and all these things, and they're really just not necessary for cold email.
Yeah, I think the most unpopular opinion you can say for like the recruiting side for us is the objection is like price. So So people are like, well, why would I spend 10,000 to get me a closer? Well, I'm like, okay, well, what does a good closer produce for you? They're like, okay, 700,000, $1 million a year. So I was like, okay, so that's like 80 grand a month. So it's like you're gonna make your money back, within a month, on what you place, or it's like, I know Alex talks about this a lot, where it's like, okay, well, I'll spend 10,000 to in training or in recruiting fees, but that person makes me back 100, 200,000 in profit for the year. So that's like a 10x return on investment.
Right.
So I think like that's like the biggest misconception that we have, that it's like, well, why should I spend money on training? I heard this story from a home services company. He goes, we train all of our techs for 4 months. So everybody's like, 4 months? Like, why? He's like, yeah, it costs us 16,000 just to train them. So they're like, why would you do? He's like, people ask him like, why would you do that? He's like, look, they generate us 400,000 in revenue with 20% profit, so that's $80,000. So in the first year alone, they'll make us 80 grand. So wouldn't I spend 16,000 to get it right, to make the 80 grand? And that's only in the first year.
Mm-hmm.
So I think like that's the misconception that people have about recruiting. And I think like the more you train, the better you screen. And that's one of the things that we have, is that we use like AI screening,
Mm-hmm.
where, because people ask us like, how do I know if it's a good hire, or what's considered a good hire? So for us, it's like we have 4 steps that we look at. So job tenure, like how long have you been at that role? If the person has been there for less than a year and they just jump around every year, we call them job hoppers. They're not going to stay. Second, if it's like an in-person role, we look at like the commute. So it's like if the person lives like more than like 40 miles away, as soon as something closer comes up, like they're gonna go. So I think like these are like the main things that we look at, and then we screen them, and we do like a job simulation where we check like, hey, do you know how to sell? Like we verify. So at the end of the day, I think like investing into your team is, because at the end of the day, they are the ones that make you the money. Like if they're on the sales calls, they generate you money, they make you money. So I think the better that you can make them, the better that you're going to end up being. So I think that's the most important for recruiting.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of business owners, I think a lot of them are not the most logical when it comes to putting their money in the right place. A lot of business owners are very scared to invest in the right things, whether something like training, which is again going to make them money, something like a marketing agency, which again, hopefully should make them money, right? A lot of people are just very hesitant to invest or at least reinvest the cash flow that they already have. I mean, this could be for various reasons. This could be because they've gotten burnt in the past. Could be because maybe personally they just don't like spending money. They just don't feel that they should or that they need to, or they have a limiting mindset and they're scared that they're not going to see that money come back. But no company in the history of the world has scaled and made a lot of money by not investing any of theirs, right? No company in the history of the world has gone and hired and trained, not spending a decent amount of money, right? No company in the world has not scaled using cold email or ads or anything else without spending money and hiring, a really good company, right? So a lot of people really just have this limiting mindset and this hesitation to invest in themselves, and it's actually the bottleneck that's stopping them from scaling to that next level. Because most of the companies that struggle with that are not already big companies, right? A lot of them are smaller companies that have not made that much money, that maybe don't have a validated offer, where they just don't have the willpower to go ahead and invest in themselves and really put that risk, which is what a business owner is. One thing that we get all the time is, hey, Justin, we'd love to do cold email, but can we do it on commission? And it's like, again, there's not a company in the world that has scaled and became rich from hiring somebody on commission, right? And anyone that does work on commission is probably just desperate. They probably don't understand, or they don't have the value that I would be promising you, right? And so that's a really big thing, is where people just have this limiting mindset and they're very hesitant to invest in the things that are going to make them money. And so I think it's our job as business owners to kind of show them that ROI on why this will be worth it, why spending money on hiring and training will be worth it in the end, why spending money on a cold email outbound system is going to be worth it in the end. But I think that's a problem that a lot of businesses are facing right now.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. And and I get it. As a smaller business, you're strapped on cash and every dollar makes a difference. It's part of the game. But in the end of the day, like you look at all the big companies, and like one thing that I like to do is like, okay, well, I'm in recruiting, you're in cold email. Okay, well, what do the biggest companies in that space, like what do they do? Right? And a lot of people say things, it's like, oh, well, you should do this, well, what are they actually doing?
Hmm.
So I think looking at what they do, I see that a lot of the bigger companies, like they all use recruiting firms, like they understand the value that it takes. So, and again, everybody can do whatever they want. I know people can hire on their own and all that 100%. But I think at the end of the day, you know, um, having reps that like burn leads, or you have to sit there training them all day, and you have to pay them. And then the day you're just wasting money. So I think like getting it right from the first time, I think like that's really important, and that's what we do on a daily basis.
Awesome.
Okay, well, before we wrap this up, any piece of advice that you want to give, somebody that is just getting started now?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if you're just getting started just in business in general, the biggest thing that you can do is generate leads. That's literally the forefront of your business. And whether it's with cold email or whether you're running ads or whether you're generating content, whatever you're doing, you have to generate leads. And if you're not generating leads with the mechanism that you're trying, you have to outsource and try to get somebody else to do it the right way. Because otherwise, you're just going to be stuck in that same place. So that would be one thing. If you are trying to run cold email, again, the three pillars that I would say are the most important are deliverability, messaging, and offer. And audience is obviously in there as well, so 4 pillars. But those are going to be the main things when you're trying to scale with cold email. Without any of those things, or without one of those things being fully optimized, the entire campaign will fall flat, right? So you need to make sure that every single one of those are optimized fully. And it's very difficult to do it by yourself. It really is. People would not pay us or any other any other cold email agency if it was not worth it for them. So I definitely recommend trying cold email, seeing the value of it. And if you do need any help with cold email, I'm more than happy to help.
Yeah, I think for us, I mean, like you said, I mean, marketing is the lifeblood of the business. It's interesting because I talk to people that like wish to have a good business and to make a lot of money. And then it's like, well, what do you do for marketing? Like, how are you getting leads? They're like, well, I don't know. I mean, word of mouth, or like, it's like, look, I mean, you got to do something to get leads. So I think like that's the most important. It's like focus there. Like at the end of the day, like you can always hire somebody for operations. You can always hire people for HR, for help, for anything like that. But at the end of the day, I feel like as like a founder, you should definitely know what needs to be done to get leads. And then of course, if you have to build your team, that's the next step. But first you have to have leads through the door. You got to make some money. And then you can bring on a team. You could bring on a setter. You could bring on a closer. So yeah, I mean, if anybody needs help with any, if anybody needs any help with like any form of like sales talent, you know, we can help them with that. We guarantee everybody for 12 months. So if they don't work out, we replace them for free. So if anybody needs any help, there should be a link somewhere there. You guys can click on it. And Justin, any final words?
No, I mean, this was an awesome interview. I really appreciate you having me on, Jacob.
I appreciate you coming on, Justin. If anybody needs any cold email services, check out Justin's page. And yeah, peace.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.